A pleasant afternoon to everyone. On behalf of St. Joseph's College of Engineering, Department of Biotechnology, it gives me an immense pleasure to welcome one and all gathered here to attend the Biotalk series version 2.10. I extend my warm welcome to Honorable Resource Person Dr. Gopal Ramakrishnan Gopi, who has joined us today to be a part of this program to speak on the topic biotechnology opportunities and changes in Indian ecosystem. I bid a warm welcome to our beloved HOD of our department, Dr. G. Srikumar sir, and Dr. V. Renuka ma'am, and all the other faculty members. I also extend my hearty welcome to the students of UG and PG program. We are honored to have you all with us today. Now, I kindly request our head of the department, Dr. G. Srikumar sir, to inaugurate the event.
Yeah. Good afternoon, my dear students and staff members. Welcome to this BioTalk lecture series version 2.10. This lockdown should not be an hindrance for developing our knowledge and enhancing the intellect. In order to keep you updated on track with the various scientific technologies and career opportunities, our biotech department is successfully conducting several online programs under the banner of BioTalk lecture series. As a part of inauguration, I wish to highlight some of the credits of our college and the department. The St. Joseph College of Engineering is one of the top colleges in India with the 160th position as per the NIRF ranking is concerned. It has got 27 years of high reputation in educational society with NBA and NAC A plus grade accreditations. It is having 12 UG programs and 7 PG programs with an affiliation from Anna University, Chennai. Recently, we have received autonomous status from UGC too. Our Department of Biotechnology was incepted in the year 2002 and having BTech and MTech biotechnology programs. Since inception, we consistently maintain around 100% pass percentage and have bagged 139 university ranks with 10 golds and 7 silver medals. The department has got sophisticated laboratory facilities and fetched the research center recognition from Anna University to do PhD program and also having 1.2 crores of government funding to conduct research. Unlike other fields of engineering, every biotech graduate shall need to clarify towards their career and job opportunities because of its inherent uniqueness and complex industrial applications. According to India Brand Equity Foundation, and the report says the India is one among the top 12 destinations in biotechnology in worldwide. There are more than 2,700 biotech companies that include startups also. And out of that, 665 are FDA approved production plants and 1,400 WHO approved manufacturing units in India. The Indian biotechnology industry amounted 63 billion US dollars in 2019, and it is forecasted that to reach 150 billion US dollars by 2020-25. By keeping all these things, the potential opportunities in mind, we have decided to organize this week's BioTalk lecture on bio career opportunities and bio entrepreneurship possibilities in Indian ecosystem. For this, we have a distinguished personality with us, Dr. Gopal Ramakrishnan Gopi, who is a successful bio entrepreneur and industry expert in food processing enzyme production. Dr. Gopal, we appreciate your kindness in accepting our invitation to give an awareness talk on bio entrepreneurship opportunities and request you further to share your own experiences and to be a mentor for our student aspirants too. With this note, on behalf of the patrons, Dr. B. Babu Manoharan, Chairman, Ms. Jessipriya, Managing Director, Mr. Sashi Shekhar, Director, Dr. V. Seshagiri Rao, Principal, Dr. Parvadavardhani, Dean. I welcome the speaker, Dr. Gopal, our students and staff members for this BioTalk lecture series. I also extend my special greetings to the organizer, Dr. Chamundishwari, Associate Professor, and Mr. Alfred, Student Coordinators also. All the best. Thank you. Over to Alfred.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Gopal Ramakrishnan Gopi has done an integrated MTech course in Industrial Biotechnology from Sastra Dean University and has completed his PhD in Biotechnology with a thesis on Metabolic Engineering from CBT Anna University, Chennai. Dr. Ramakrishnan started his career as a team member at PDST TBI Tanjavur and was later promoted as a principal investigator in the same company with a modified name as Fermentech GSV Private Limited. He is currently appointed as a Chief Operational Officer at Fermentech GSV Private Limited. He is a person with well-established technical skills with bioprocess engineering, metabolomic engineering, molecular biology, and analytic techniques, and many more. Dr. Ramakrishnan has won many fellowships and awards such as DART Fellowship in the University of Münster, Germany in the year 2012, CSIR Research Fellowship by UGC, MRP, SRP Fellowship, and TST Lockheed Martin Innovation Prize, IIGP. He has published journals in AMB Express, Springer Heidelberg, on the topic glycerol conversion to 1,3-propanediol is enhanced by expression of heterologous alcohol dehydrogenase gene in Lactobacillus reuteri, and also published in top journals like Bioscience, Biotechnology and Biochemistry, and many more. Dr. Ramakrishnan has done research grants in individual capacity, such as projects on redox engineering of Pseudomonas putida and on deregulated expression of code Y in Lactobacillus lactis. It is an immense pleasure in welcoming you, sir, and I request you to take over the section from here.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, sir. And I especially thank Dr. Shri Kumar and Dr. Chamundishwari Madam for giving this opportunity to me. So let me start the presentation. So is the screen visible to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So the today's topic is biotechnology opportunities and changes in Indian ecosystem. So I want to start this discussion with a very positive note. Nature Biotechnology has tweeted 1 week before that 2020 will be remembered in biotech. It is not just for the response to the pandemic, rather the Nature Biotechnology says, and the biotech financing went off the charts, with a lot of initial public offerings. Many startups, have gathered a lot of money and they have entered into pilot plant facilities, and many startups abroad, like they have gathered a lot of money and they have listed in various stock exchanges across the globe. And the most important thing is they have got many follow-up offerings also, and the private investment, it is in the peak. So 2020 will be definitely remembered for biotech. Like it is not just for the sake of pandemic, or it is not just for the sake that we invented the COVID vaccine or something, because this is a breakthrough year where you have seen a phenomenal record of investments happen truly for the core biotech sector, which is going to involve bioprocess engineering and biochemical engineering. Yeah. So the Indian core biotech, I want to give you a very short introduction about how the Indian biotech core is looking as of now. The market size, if you see, it is kind of growing at a size of 63 billion to 150 billion. It is estimated that in 2025 we will be in a size of 150 billion. So this number is big or not? How to appreciate this number? 150 billion is a big achievement, or it is just a small achievement? How to appreciate this number? Look at Amazon. Its market capital is kind of 1,800 billion, which is several times, from the 150 billion. And in 2 days, just 2 weeks before, in 2 days, Amazon has added $100 billion in its market capitalization itself. We are saying in 2025, we will be just a $150 billion industry. So biotech, you just compare with Amazon's growth story, it is very nascent. We are going to be still nascent in 2025 also. So it means like I said something positively in the beginning, but I'm saying like we are going to be nascent. There are reasons, like biotech industry always takes a lot of time than the other technology based industries like e-commerce or whatever. So it has its own complexities. Our HOD has already explained, like while in the initial stages itself. But like unlike other engineering disciplines, biotechnology is much difficult to scale up, much difficult to capture the market and all that. So it will take its own time, pace and all that. But the good news is that we have recorded a maximum investment for first time in the history. That is also true. But at the same time, we all must know whatever happening is very nascent when you compare with just one listed company in Nasdaq. Fine. So how we have to see this, how much we are contributing to the Indian GDP. It is just 2.5%. This number itself is highly biased. Why I am saying it is biased in the sense it includes agriculture as well. For example, this calculation includes BT cotton as well. So BT cotton maybe is a biotechnology product. But logically speaking, in terms of financial calculations, one should consider that in agricultural output, not with the biotechnology output. So so leaving the BT cotton, we have other two good news to share. One is that we are the largest producer of the hepatitis B vaccine in the world, and as our HOD sir already told, like we have the largest number of US FDA approved plants. That is one big achievement we have. But I want to dissect here and show to you. We have largest number of US FDA approved plants. That is true. But how many of them are producing recombinant products? There are many plants. They are into chemical synthesis. Even peptides are synthesized by chemical mechanisms. A lot of synthesis is involved there. But when you consider biotechnology plants, the number is much, much smaller. So the government don't want to disappoint us by giving a dissect here, but the truth is, the number of biotechnology plants, that to US FDA approved plants, is not very high in India. It is not even moderate. We are coming up. And when you look at the biotechnology proposition in India, we largely represent 4 different domains. Biopharmaceuticals, contract research and contract manufacturing is the another area which contributes around 15% of the 2.5% GDP. And the bioagriculture, again, that largely includes the biopesticides and the BT cotton, all that. And the bioindustrials is occupying only 7%. So I want to give you examples. What is biopharma and all that? Since we have large number of students here, I want to emphasize about what is the difference between bioindustrial and biopharma. So in biopharma, you consider products like insulin, you consider products like monoclonal antibodies and all that. But in bioindustrials, you will consider products like enzymes, which has wide range of applications. It can be used in food industry, and at the same time, it can be used in the pharmaceutical industry as well. So mostly enzymes and chemicals, biological chemicals, for example, lactic acid, all that are considered in bioindustrials. And bioagriculture, obviously, you yourself can figure out what it is. And contract research, this is a different area. So this is actually a service sector. So we largely cater to European and US market. Lately, like companies like Lupin, they are catering to markets in Japan also. So what exactly happening in CRO means a big pharmaceutical giant may come up with some proposal. They want to develop a clone. They want to express whatever the genes they have cloned, and after the expression, they want to scale up. And once after the scale up, they will be producing clinical trial batches, and those clinical trial batches will be going for the first round of US FDA writing, drafting, and all that. So all this kind of things are is collectively known as contract research services, and India is a hub. And why India is a hub? Like we offer quality manpower. Not, I don't want to use the word cheap manpower here. The manpower is not really cheap here. We offer quality manpower. We offer quality research infrastructure also. So largely like the European companies, even from the Asian point of view, Japan and all that, they are investing in the CRO market, and it is largely growing now, right? And if you look at some of the statistics that is given by our government, the startups we have currently around 2,000 startups. So what are these 2,000 startups? All of them are core biotech companies. If you ask me, the answer is big no. The core biotech companies will be probably some 50 or 60, but the remaining chunk, 1,600, 1,700, they largely represent services, predominantly diagnostic market. And they also represent things like biotechnology services, but they are not representing, the number is not the actual picture. It is not representing the core biotech. But the other numbers, like bio incubators, we have 45 biological incubators across the country. So this is a new concept evolving now. So this is the change I want to point out in the ecosystem. So when I was doing PhD, when I was starting PhD, there nobody knows the word bio incubator. Anna University was having something called technology felicitation cell, something like that. Fine. But now everything got formalized, and there is a funding coming into the academic units, especially from a public-private partnership organization known as BIRAC. Fine. So in the bio incubation cell, what exactly you do means you have some private companies coming in there, and the university faculty and the university student, or else probably if I want to consider your institution as an example, then your biotechnology department will be actively involved in it by means of collaborating with the private companies, and your own students will be co-working with those companies. And sometimes what happens, one of our students themselves may start a startup by collaborating with a professor. So these kinds of things are largely happening in institutions like Indian Institute of Technology, Anna University, and the top institutes across the country. Even institutions like AIIMS, they are kind of becoming entrepreneurial nowadays. Not just the biotechnology part, like the medical biosciences. They are also investing a lot in the bio incubation aspects. And we have something called biotechnology translational clusters. We just have only 4 of them. This is more important than the bio incubators. The translational cluster means once you have a technology ready, you will be able to offer it to the various startups or various MSMEs around the particular region. I can explain you how it works. Like if you have a technology for wastewater treatment, for example, there are in Kadalur region, if you go and explore, there are a lot of pharmaceutical companies. It is a cluster. Fine. So some 10-15 companies may want one particular solution. So if you have a particular technology that will help those a group of companies, then the Urjit cluster will come there and will help you to formalize the proposal, and you will be able to cater to the Kadalur region. That's how these things are evolving. And slowly you have things like biomanufacturing zones. In Chennai, if you sorry, in Chennai, if you see, there is something called Taisal Biopark, and that is not a biomanufacturing zone. It is just a real estate property that gives you a square feet of area for a particular price, and you go and sit there for whatever, for example, doing research and all that. But biomanufacturing zone are like special economic zones. For example, you should compare it with things like Hyundai factory. You know, like the government will allocate a separate land, separate township will be developed around it. For example, if you take Trichy as an example, you will see BHEL. BHEL, when it is developing around the BHEL, you have seen many growth. For example, township itself has come. Fine. Another example is Neyveli. So, like that, biomanufacturing zone proposals are given by the government, and they are slowly catching up its pace. Yeah. So as I told you, like the biotechnology in India, if you see, it largely caters 4 different sectors, as I already said. One is the bio-industrials. I want to take an example from Sensex, you know, so that you can easily understand how the industry is kind of evolving in the current scenario. So if you take bio-industrials, one good example is Advanced Enzymes Technologies. It is a company based on Bombay, you know, and they have operations in Ahmedabad also. They largely produce enzymes, and they largely cater to US and European markets. And their main product, you know, like it can be as simple as amylase, and at the same time they produce enzymes for the pharmaceutical bioconversions as well. So if you look at the growth of these companies after 2008, even in the pandemic, you see 2020 we were experiencing pandemic. The company's price, you know, like the market price, the share price, as we colloquially call, you know, if somebody has bought it in 2020, now they would have made a double output, you know. It was available at 200 rupees. Now it is available at 400 rupees. So if you have invested 1 lakh, you know, it would have become 2 lakhs in the pandemic. That is the kind of growth these industries have shown in the pandemic. And you know, like the next example is biopharma. I purposely put a question here. Biocon is not a complete biopharmaceutical company. Whatever number you interpret, for example, the share price is trading at 379 rupees. Does it represent the output of biological produce? Means my answer is no. See, the company started to include the biological produce in a separate head in their top line from the year 2019 only. So Biocon Biologicals is kind of evolving within the Biocon. Fine. So whatever number you see, it is not actual true picture of a biopharmaceutical company like AstraZeneca. We don't have a true biopharma company in India as of now. So we will get it at some point of time, maybe in 2025, maybe in 2030. It will happen. And another example I want to give you is for the Dhanuka Agritech. Again, I have put a question mark here. This is a fantastic company which caters to the biopesticide market, which also caters to the biofertilizer market. You see, in the year 2020, the price you see, you will be able to buy it at somewhere around 250 rupees. It has appreciated 4 times. Now it is trading at 1000 rupees. See, the sectors like enzymes, the sectors like agriculture have outperformed in the pandemic itself, and biotechnology products have also contributed for it. That is the take-home message. But again, I want to stress, Dhanuka Agritech is not a full-fledged, you know, like the entire 1000 rupees cannot be equated to the biotech products. It includes chemical products also. So maybe you can say 20% of the revenue, it is coming from the biotechnology division of the Dhanuka Agritech. And another example, it is another division of Biocon, but separately trades in the Sensex. It is called Syngene International. It is basically a contract company. And again, yes, this is also a success story. See, the share price got tripled in the pandemic. So, you know, like everybody is saying economy is not working and all that, but there are sectors which are outperforming also. And I'm very happy to say our sector, biotechnology, is actually outperforming in Indian stock market. in the pandemic scenario as well. Yeah. So let's look at some more clean data, like how every state is kind of giving importance to biotechnology and biopharmaceutical cluster and all that. So this data you can take it from Niti Aayog website. So they point out two things, especially for Tamil Nadu. So the small graph you see in the top, the round, what is this? Some flask kind of graph, they have given. So this represents, Tamil Nadu is figuring out here. They say Tamil Nadu is getting a lot of grants up, and Delhi is the top in getting the grant, and Tamil Nadu ranks second, and Maharashtra ranks third in getting the grant. So a lot of research activities are happening in Tamil Nadu. Fine, but when you look at the production level companies, which are not depending on research grants, which are going to depend on investments from private investors or about rising money from Sensex and all that. The cluster is mainly present in Maharashtra, Gujarat, Himachal, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and Uttarakhand. But the graph also shows you one important thing, that the cluster is growing at the highest rate in Maharashtra. It is growing at a very rapid rate in Maharashtra. The second rank goes to Himachal Pradesh. The third rank goes to very surprising state, Sikkim. It is an eastern state, like people call it eastern state, but Sikkim is growing at a third rank. Sikkim is a fantastic destination for biotech. And Rajasthan, again, is another surprise. You don't see Tamil Nadu figuring out here. So this is our problem. So we get a lot of grants, we do a lot of research, but we don't translate it into a industry. So this has to happen at a faster pace, and it will happen in due course of time. Yeah. So another change I want to point out, this is very important, there is a pharmaceutical company called Sun Pharma, and this is basically a generic drug company. If you ask me, this is second or third largest generic pharma company in Asia itself. So generic in the sense they will be selling products like paracetamol. Somebody will be making paracetamol, and Sun Pharma will buy it at a huge bulk quantity, and then they will convert it into a tablet, and they will selling it in their own brand. They even acquired a company like Ranbaxy a few years before. We used to see a product in TV, Volini spray. It is a Ranbaxy product for the knee pain, knee joint pain, and all that. Now Ranbaxy is part of Sun Pharma. That was their business model. They go and acquire something, and whatever they acquire usually belongs to generic pharma. But Dilip Singhavi, the founder, he's the chairperson of the company. He has made a statement that they are going to venture into biosimilars. Right? They have acquired a separate company for that called Zenot Biotech in Hyderabad, and they are going to invest a lot of money in Zeno Biotech, and that is going to become a biosimilar hub for Sun Pharma. So, the editorial, the Economic Times, I guess, they are kind of people, they don't want to express anything positively. See how they are giving a headline. Sun Pharma is warming up to biosimilar, but complexity and competition makes the business a gamble. This is what the editor wants to convey. Again, our, in the beginning itself, we all said it is a complex thing. It is true. The editor also points out the same. But he says it is a gamble as well. So this is the risk, why the biotech industry is kind of taking a lot of time to grow. If it is gamble, how investors will pitch in their money. They will do it in a measured way. They want milestone outputs. They will see how it is coming. Then only things will move on. It is not like Zomato. Zomato, you see, they have made continuous loss for 4 years. Their annual book, when you see, for 4 years they have continuously made losses. But Zomato got listed in Sensex 3-4 days before, and Zomato has appreciated 60-70% in its price. Even though it makes loss, people like it. But the same cannot be applied to a biotech company. That is the problem, because the inherent nature itself, it can be a gamble for the investors, and it can be complex in the technical aspects also. But now, government is kind of intervening, and they are kind of solving the problem by understanding the complexity. As an industry observer, I myself was surprised to see this, for first time, the industry is observing a list of molecules eligible for incentives suitable for MSMEs. The government is giving you a list of fermentation derivable molecules, and it asks proposal from the private companies to set up process plan for it, and they want to incentivize it in both top line and bottom line. And it includes all the products you see are not surprising at all. You know, some products like penicillin, erythromycin, basic antibiotics and all that. And it also includes advanced versions of antibiotics: neomycin, gentamicin, dexamethasone. It's a dexamethasone is a steroid, I guess, and prednisolone, vitamin B1, whatever molecules we generally call generic, you know. So the business is shifting. This is what I want to try to show to you. Sun Pharma was doing all this, you know. Sun Pharma was buying all this from somebody, and then they were converting these molecules into tablet and they were selling it. But now these molecule manufacturing process is hand changing is going to happen. So small companies, like you can take my example as our company itself. We are interested in scaling up these kind of molecules. So this is going to change in the down 3-4 years, and Sun Pharma will take up biosimilars. So this is the change that we are observing in the industry. Yeah. So here I want to show you, like always when we think biotechnology, you know, like we always think it is only API, active pharmaceutical ingredient, or it is a drug. Biotechnology means drug industry. It is not true. I want to give you 2 examples which my company itself is catering in the market. One is from coconut water. Probably if it is any physical meeting, you know, like usually nowadays getting a physical meeting is not possible at all. So whenever, you know, like my last physical meeting also, I remember they always come and present a paper boat coconut water in the office desk. Fine. So the paper boat coconut water is processed by using a biotechnology product known as niacin. It is a biopreservative. It is a lactococcal derived fermentation product. And India is kind of innovative. You know, the Kerala is the largest producer of coconut water. The Kerala is advanced in that way that they are able to convert the coconut water into a value-added pre-packed coconut water. And the pre-packed coconut water is having a biological preservative. Why they are using biological preservative? If they use benzoic acid, what will happen? You will not like it, right? Coconut water is natural thing, so you have to use natural preservative. So India is innovative in that sense. You know, the food technology is evolving rapidly, and startups like Paper Boat is eating the market, catching the market very fastly. And it's not a bad news, but it is a reality. We don't have a manufacturer for niacin in India. We have a lot of retailers, we have a lot of resellers, importers in India. We largely import from China, but we don't even have a manufacturing base for niacin in India. But these things will change from here afterwards because the market is picking up, you know. So investors are calmly observing these things. So these kind of industrial biotechnology products, that's what I said, you know, like in the beginning, it was presented as 7% growth rate, you know, that will outperform the biosimilar growth rate itself. Another important example I want to highlight is from the day-to-day. Most of us will eat some biscuit or else some rusk while taking tea or coffee, you know. It is having enzymes. You can see here, for example, I'm not getting the cursor. See, 1100I, 1002, 1004. These represents enzymes, you know, amylase, protease, lipase, and some rusk brands are having enzymes like xylanase also. This is as simple as Britannia rusk. This is not some imported rusk. So these kind of food additives, which are basically industrial biotechnology products. So these kind of products are already, you know, they are into market, and India largely imports these products. So now you will definitely see a lot of MSME companies focusing in these kind of products, and they will outgrow in the market in next 3 to 4 years. Yeah. And at the same time, you know, like we have as biotechnology, it's an old story, you know, like when somebody wants to describe what is the oldest product, somebody has made a pickle at some point. So I started with pickle. Then we know how to make curd and all that. We have grown really up to the scale of microbial chassis making small molecules. So various products are available. Like as simple as a pickle and at the same time more complex microbial chassis. But what will outperform in Indian market, if ethanol? If you ask me, the answer is big no, because the solar is going to dominate, right? So ethanol, I don't think so. It will outperform in India. Vaccines, we are already the largest player. We are already, I cannot comment on this. We are already largest player, but still we haven't vaccinated at least 25% of our country. So there is scope for growth. But given the market size, given the market opportunity in the pandemic also, we have not increased our production capacities in vaccines. So will this happen in 2025? Will this happen in 2030? I can answer in a positive way that it will happen, but not at a faster pace, because it has its own complexities, as we already discussed. So the products, like what is suitable for India, what will pick up for India, whatever related to food industry, whatever related to wild type fermentation. You don't do any cloning, expression and all that. Wild type fermentation products. It can be as simple as enzymes. It can be as simple as a biological preservatives. So these kind of industrial biotechnology products will have an excellent growth rate, because the FMCG, the fast moving consumer goods, it is outperforming. So along with this, industrial biotechnology products will also try to outperform. Yeah. So whenever we say, like Indian biotech growth story, everybody wants to compare it with Biocon. Even the government wants to do like that. Look at this. They are presenting the global biotech growth rate. They are presenting the current industry growth rate in India, and they are comparing it with Biocon. And they say it is 18%. Biocon is outperforming than the Indian rate. This is what they want to present to us. But as I already said, the name Biocon does not represent biopharma. So interpreting data like this is not fair, So I want to give you examples which are doing groundwork in India, which will have fantastic future. For example, new age fertilizer companies. You can see in Chennai itself. There is a company called Fipsol. It is based on IIT Chennai. They are making new age fertilizers. Their fertilizers are completely soluble in water. That is the technology. And the companies like MBio, it is based on Mahad, and the companies like Ivosynth, it is based on Bangalore. So they do a lot of resting cell biotransformations in the API industry. They convert substrate to product. I cannot comment on the name of the products, but they do a lot of biotransformation reactions. And again, bioethanol. Bioethanol, we are blending with petrol, and companies like Praj Industries, IGL, DBT was boasting about its success 2-3 years before, that they have installed a pilot plant in India Glycols Limited, and bioethanol plant is functional now in IGL. And another growth story you can always inspire from companies like Unique Biotech. It's based on Hyderabad. They are outperforming in animal husbandry based probiotics. And you have a company in Chennai, Tablet India. They are also doing well in the probiotic space. And this growth story is also very new. Navia Biologicals, it is a incubator based company. For 16-70 years, they were lying with the incubator. They developed a technology for recombinant human serum albumin. And now Navia Biological got amalgamated with a company in Sensex called Shilpa Medicare. So this is the growth, somebody in a bio incubator develops a technology and they validate it for 15-16 years. At some point, it gets a value proposition, and then a company in Sensex, for example, Shilpa Medicare, acquires it. So these kind of things will happen down the lane at a very faster rate in our Indian context in next couple of decades. And animal vaccines, a good example is Hester Biosciences. They are also coming up with the very, very novel and very commercial aspects, which are very successful in the market. And another important thing, when we say growth of biotech, it will not, you should not consider whatever relevant for the biotech. You should see when biotech is growing, what are the other things will grow along with it. One good example is real estate MSMEs. Okay, so whoever develop the private incubation centers. For example, in Bangalore, you have something called Bangalore Bio Innovation Center. It is a public-private partnership. And in Hyderabad, you have IKP Knowledge Park, ICICI Knowledge Park. ICICI Bank has put some money, government has put some money. Those private incubation centers will grow. And private industrial estate, already private industrial estates are available in Coimbatore for the automobile sector. And these kind of things, real estate market will pick up. That is what the government is identifying as zone. That's what I showed you in the first slide. And the another important thing is when the process industries are growing, especially when the biotech industry is growing, you have many examples. For example, effluent treatment plants, steam supply, all that has to be given in an integrated fashion, right? So these kind of businesses will develop within the industrial park. And more important, companies which are making autoclave, as simple as autoclave or as complex as bioreactors. So these companies will grow. So what are the names we know always? Sartorius, Bioengineering, those foreign brands, and Chennai means Hygienics. Apart from that, we have another 4 or 5 names in India, right? So how many bioreactor companies we know first of all? So these things, will dramatically change the mechanical engineering for biotechnology. So these things will outperform in next 5 to 6 years. Yeah, now itself we can see a lot of examples, like one example I want to show you here. It is a 3-day, it is a news published 3 days before. Why COVID vaccines is slowing down, they are saying, see, nowadays the COVID vaccines are made with the technology known as reusable. It's not reusable, sorry. It's a one-time use bioreactor. So how a bioreactor will be one-time usable? For example, the entire reactor will be made, the vessel structure will be made out of a plastic bag, Those plastic bag manufacturing units are not available in India. You have to import it from US. So it is taking time. That is why the manufacturing process or the output from Serum Institute of India is certainly taking more time. So why not we develop a MSME for making a plastic bag for ourselves? So these are the things carefully the market is observing. And slowly these kind of industries will come up in India itself. And these are 3 examples I want to show you, like how effluent treatment plant or else wastewater treatment plant or else steam supply kind of industries, which are evolving in the time of pandemic itself within the industrial estates where process industries are doing their job. Yeah. So far I have presented like what is the context for the industry in India. But now I want to give you some idea about our career, like after biotech as a student, what is it? So far you have heard many things relevant for a business person. But as a student, what is important for you? So one relevant thing, one relevant thing is you can notice here, Nature has published it in 2 years before. They are boldly saying in the title itself, why a postdoc might not advance your career. This is the title of the article. You can Google it and get the article and read by yourself. The essence of the article is postdocs are kind of, they will not find a job. And once you do a postdoc also, it will not advance your career. So what they are trying to say, please stop with masters, or please stop with the PhD itself and go to industry and get some experience, Don't sit and study for a quite long time. That is what the 90s kids were doing. That's what the 80s kids were doing. They do PhD, they do a postdoc and all that. But now the trend is changing, right? So a lot of industries are coming up and the nature is taking its own advice. It's giving you a call, please don't do any postdoc. That is the take-home message. But fine, like with PhD, you are narrowing down your career. In PhD, what you exactly do, you do a thesis by focusing on a particular question. So you are narrowing down your opportunity. Fine. It is not going to broaden your opportunity. Most of the startups in India, I'm frankly saying, they are thinking PhDs as burden, because we have to pay more for them. So people think PhDs itself as a burden. So we like to recruit BTech and MTech. in most of the scenarios, because they are having more aptitude, they are young and they are energetic, they support for most of the activities which is relevant for an industrial environment. That is why you see even in companies listed in Sensex also, the research contribution by them is very, very less. Fine. So when you do a PhD, for example, see, first I should explain you what the sizes of this, what is this round, or how to call it, some elliptical structure. So these are the size of opportunities, you know. So when you do PhD, you will find your job probably in a CSIR lab, or else if you are so lucky, you will be posted in NIH, a US based lab or something. The opportunity is really small. But and at the same time, when you fit with some industrial aspect, you know, you will be mostly working in the product development area or else in a clinical development area. I have given you some examples. Novozymes means you will be working as enzymes application engineer. GSK means vaccine process engineer. Biocon, you know, biosimilar fermentation scientist. Reliance is doing a lot of metabolic engineering, so you have opportunities to become a metabolic engineer. And humble example, you know, Rasi Seed is based on Salem, based on Tamil Nadu. You can become a biopesticide formulation scientist. These are the opportunities, these are the titles you can vision in India for the next 5-6 years if you have a PhD degree in Indian setup. But if you have masters, you know, you have plenty of opportunities. After masters itself, you will be able to become a biochemical engineer, you will be able to become a plant assistant manager and all that. And in between, you have some areas like regulatory affairs and IP matters. This does not require any education or formal training. This largely requires experience, you know. So only consultants will be able to lead, not PhDs will be able to lead, or postdocs will be able to lead. Only professional consultants will be able to lead these two areas. And at the same time, always, as any educational advisor says, after BTech, if you come out with a bright MBA from a B school, for example, IIM, or else Indian School of Business, whatever, right? You have a lot of opportunities to outgrow in the business development area, supply chain area, and as well, and your career growth in terms of salary will be much, much, much fantastic than fitting with the technical aspects itself. I am not demotivating somebody in pursuing technical aspects. I'm kind of giving you what is reality in the ground level. When somebody do a BTech and then an IIM MBA means it is completely different. You know, the scenario in the life itself will change in a much different way. Or else if you do a master's from Germany, the scenario will much different. You know, you have to still struggle a lot to find a job in a manufacturing base. So this is the limelight scenario that I'm trying to show for you. Yeah. So in our company, like I want to give example and show you like how we inculcate certain things within our startup. When somebody approaches as a trainee, and then they will become a biochemical engineer level 1 probably in 2 years. So we have recruited many persons in that way, and we have molded them into biochemical engineer level 1 so far. So what are the things we follow? I want to share with you so that it will be helpful for the student community to understand what the industry wants if he or she has to become a biochemical engineer. One fantastic course I want to suggest is from MIT OpenCourseWare. Dr. Christella Jones Prather's course, you know, it is available online. It is completely free. And there are a lot of prerequisites for it. You need to be good in math, you need to be good in basic biology and all that. But it's still, you know, if you are still not good in these two things also, it is a wonderful experience to go along with the course. And if you want to get certified, you know, you have to pay and get the certification and all that. So it's up to you. You can complete the course either by a certification or else you can just watch it and learn it. But this is a mandatory practice in our company. Whoever joins as a biochemical engineer, in 1 year time, they should complete this course and get certified. And see, I'm listing you some basic things. You know, like unit conversions. It may be as simple, you know, unit conversion is an easy thing, we will all say. But when you practically work, you know, these are the skill sets which are very, very important. You should have handwritten notes for it. You should have buffer tables in your hand and all that. So you should start from the basics like unit conversions in chemistry. Then you should be strong in concepts like pH, ionic strength and all that. then you should know when in a lab what is more important, how to prepare a trace element solution. If you are able to prepare a trace element solution without precipitation, it is a first success, because you understood what is pH, you understood what is ionic strength, you understood unit conversions as well. Fine. So this is how we go, and then we teach, and then we train them in the serial dilution methods, and slowly we go to microbiology plating methods. Then we teach like how to do light microscopy. So see why microscopy is important in a production environment, for a simple reason. You must see whether the batch is contaminated or not. One simple way of telling is looking at the microscope and say, fine. So these may look very pretty simple, but at the practical level, how to use a microscope, that itself is very complicated technically when you ask me. So these are the things you should focus on. And like many people struggle in this also. Growth curve calculation, how to take slope from the growth curve. So basically you should be able to plot the logarithmic values in the graph, and you should be able to calculate the slope, the basic mathematical equations behind it and all that. So these kind of knowledge is important. And these are add-ons. If you are good in MATLAB, if you are good in PLC programming, all that is kind of very helpful in a production environment. And statistical methods, these are compulsory. You must know how to calculate standard deviation, ANOVA table, all that. These things we study in BTech, but we forget later. But so these things are more important in a working environment. So theoretical part, like in what kind of things we focus is about metabolic physiology of E. coli. Largely like how the glycolysis is working, how the ELP pathway is working, all that is important. And protein glycolytic pathway is a hot topic. For example, if you are working for a biosimilar industry, the glycolytic pathways are more important, because there only the protein surface residues are getting modified and all that. So what are the enzymes involved in it? What is the kinetics behind it, and how to control those reactions and all that? So these knowledge comes when you spend some time in theoretical aspects of these kind of things. And more important thing is enzyme kinetics. How to understand the enzyme kinetics, how to calculate Ki, inhibition constant for a given enzyme. So these are the things, these are the routine lab work that any bioprocess industry will do. Fine. And advanced level, like once you qualify for this, probably after 1 year, you will be exposed to how to assay an enzyme. We start with amylase. And and for that, like a simple technique from UV visible spectroscopy itself is enough. So you get a hands-on in UV spec as well, and then slowly to SGS page. Because SGS page, everybody thinks it is a molecular biology. Why I should learn SGS page? I am a process engineer. See, you produce protein inside the fermenter, and who will analyze it? Right. So if you pass it to the another department, he will lie to you saying there is no expression and all that. So you should foolproof also, right? So it is very important. Even though you are a process engineer, you should learn to do SGS page and all that. And in HPLC methods are also more important as you grow up. So these are the steps we follow to become a successful biochemical engineer. And again, I'm stressing the course, the online course you find in the MIT website is very exciting and very useful. Yeah. The other aspect of our company is process engineer, who will not do any biotech, but rather a lot of chemical engineering aspects. So for that also, we have a set of guidelines to come up. And for that also, I have suggested a course. It is based on Udemy, but I guess it's a paid course, but not very expensive, but very worthy course to consider. And for a process engineer, inside a biotech factory, what is more important, he should be a mechanical guy. The mindset itself should be mechanical, and he should have some basic idea about chemical engineering. For example, mass balance equations, unit conversions. He should be good in electrical engineering also, not the advanced aspects. At least he should be able to know what is R, Y, V, the three phases, and the basic star connections and all that. What is a pump, what is a motor, and what is the fluid dynamics behind it. So these basic things you will grasp from this Udemy course itself. So these will help you to understand how a pump is working, how a motor is working. Because why pump and motor is working for a process industry? because everything when you scale up, for example, tangential flow filtration systems, you see, it is all depend on pumps, it all depends on motors, right? So a process engineer is always required, and he needs these kind of skill sets to become successful. And one important thing we highlight is HVAC skills. Colloquially, we call it heating and cooling skills, heating and cooling skills. That's how the industry calls it. So these are the things you must know. So as you grow, you will be able to expose to things like sterilization, depth kinetics, scale estimation methods, and all that when you become an advanced process engineer. Yeah. So while studying biotech as a student, what is important? Everybody thinks the biology is more inspiring for me. Math is not important. One has to give equal importance to mathematics also, right? So then only you will become a successful bioprocess engineer. Mathematics is as important as biology. And second mistake everybody does is biochemistry will be more inspiring for many of us. But the truth is chemical engineering is more dominant in the work environment than the biochemistry. So be strong in the fundamental aspects, unit operations and all that, separation processes, unit operations in chemical engineering, mass transfer, heat transfer. All that is important than how a purine pyrimidine pathway is working. And I'm not underestimating biochemistry. I'm saying the general context in a young student's mind, the biochemist, they think biochemistry is more important. No, chemical engineering is equally more important as biochemistry. And most of us, like in the 90s kids, we don't have these kind of things. I don't know data science, I don't know coding skills and all that. I used to ask my professor, why they teach C programming to me? But now you realize, like I'm appointing a separate programmer and doing my job. In a production environment, in PLC control system, lot of programming is involving. So when you are a process engineer, when you know basic programming skills, data analytics skills and all that, it will be very helpful for you to evolve within the company. So these are the things, are very important. And while studying, like what to focus, everybody will be interested to know what is a CRISPR, what is the science behind it and all that. But please focus on basics, how to run a SDS page is more important in BTech level than understanding what is a CRISPR. So these are the things I want to focus on. So find out like what is your interest. In 4 years, you should find out what is your interest and try to move accordingly. Yeah. So these are the things we just show you like to inspire you. So how a process industry is evolving, how a process engineer is evolving within a biotech industry. So this is just a prototype for a tangential flow filtration system. Basically, it is a microfiltration system. Our process engineers are doing it by themselves. It looks pretty simple to our eyes. There is a pump, there is some few tubes, and there is just a pressure gauge and all that. But once you do this only, you will be able to do something like this. And at some point, you will be able to do something like this. This is a pilot GMP for tangential flow filtration system. You have to start as simple as possible. So you should understand why fluid mechanics is important, why heat transfer is important. You should be able to do things by yourself. That is why I call it do it yourself kind of things. So you have to build a lot of prototypes, then only you will be able to scale up. Always bioprocess engineers use the word called scale up frequently. Fine. So first you should also know to scale down also. For some examples, scale down is also important. So these are pictures I'm just showing you to inspire you to why these kind of skills are important in a process industry, especially biotechnology. Right. So finally, like I want to give some importance to how the environment is changing, for the students who are pursuing BTech. In my days, what is the extracurricular, not extracurricular, co-curricular. The only thing is summer research fellowship, and that too some 5-6 fellowships will be given, or that too only in places like Indian Academy of Science or else in JNCASR. Now you have many things. See, there is a iGEM competition happening across colleges, and there is pre-iGEM also. The government is coming up with a fantastic scheme called iBEC, and they call it pre-iGEM, and you can qualify for it. And then there is a scope called e-Yuva. E-Yuva is a special program in BIRAC for the BTech students to start company while pursuing third or fourth year of BTech itself. So these are the changes you see in the ecosystem. These kind of opportunities are not available for us. So it is given to the second 2K kids. You know, you can directly go for a big grant, which we have achieved in the year 2016, 2015. Only while doing PhD, only we were able to get a BIG grant. But nowadays, BTech students are able to do it. Many IIT students are able to successfully do it. You know. So it does not mean only IIT only can do. When you try, you will also get it. Yeah, there is a important message. You know, like this is a summary. Again, I am taking from a public database, which is published in Science, I guess. And you know, so these are the top 10 biotech companies across the globe. And you know, these are the total employees they have already. And look at the number. These are the total recruitments that have happened from the 3 top online recruitment portals, Monster, LinkedIn, and Biospace. The number is very less. See, 11,000 students, 11,000 candidates, 8,000 candidates, and Biospace is having only 114 candidates. Only this much jobs they have offered in last year, I guess. Probably it's not a last year data, it's 2019 data. See, this 11,000 number is comparable with TCS recruiting from 10 campuses in India itself. You know, they recruit some 1,000 candidates from one college itself, and they recruit some from 10 colleges in India itself. But the entire biotech top industry in US itself is recruiting only 11,000 people. So we have to be one of them. That is very important, you know. So this is the picture, the global picture. This will change or not, if you ask me. The answer is no. It will not change. The biotech industry is not human intensive at all. It is more automated. It is more robust in terms of engineering and all that. But the human capital requirement is largely required in mechanical operations, chemical engineering operations, and all these things, but not in the core biotech area. That is why you see a lot of recruitments are not happening practically. And with the positive note, I again want to conclude, you know, like in India, in Bangalore, you know, there is a company called Richco. They are constructing a fermenter, you know, with 180 kiloliters of biofermentation capacity. This is the largest fermenter in Asia, I guess. It's coming up in Bangalore itself. So you yourself understand. See, when a process plant comes in Bangalore, what are the skill sets required? You know, heat transfer, mass transfer, and all that. Not your biochemistry. Fine. So as a process industry expert, I'm happy in this regard. You know, see, there is a big fermenter coming up in Bangalore itself. So this is it's just a starting. This will happen across, and lot many fermentation industries will come up in India itself. This has happened during the COVID times itself. That is a good news. Yeah. So with this remarks, I just want to conclude. You know, we started in the year pandemic. I mean, I'm kind of our pilot plant. You know, as a company we started earlier, but our first production plant we also started in the pandemic year. And we are completely operational now. We produce a lot of enzymes. We produce a lot of API molecules by using biotransformation methods and all that. Yeah. So we thank our core people, especially Dr. Satya, Krishna Kumar, Prakash. You know, like they are our core people having expertise in all chemical engineering operations and biotechnology process operations. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, for this wonderful lecture and enlightening us on the topic biotechnological opportunities and changes in Indian ecosystem. We have few questions from the participants, sir.
Yes.
And
can I stop presenting and take the questions?
Yeah, sure, sir. Sure.
Just a moment.
Are we fine to go, sir?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a question that is there any internship program available in your company, and how can the students apply for the same?
Right. The one way is to go through BCIL. You know, there is Biotechnology Consortium India Limited. They offer you an internship program. So if somebody interested to join our company, one best way is to qualify for the BCIL entrance exam and all that. And we also listed in the BCIL list of companies. So you have to basically come up with a proposal through BCIL to join our company.
Okay, sir. And the next question is, if we were to enter any business aspect of biotech industry, do we think it is better to do an MBA after a master's degree in Germany or a BTech degree?
See, if you frankly ask me after BTech, if you want to do business, the best thing is you in BTech itself, you have to show your potential by getting a BIG grant. Fine, because BIRAC is offering it as a competition. So form a team in your BTech program itself, join with your friends and show that you are technically competent by getting a grant. It can be EUI, it can be BIG or whatever, fine. Or else a lot of startup competitions are happening in Startup India web pages also. Go and explore it. There are small grants also, 5 lakh, 6 lakh kind of grants also. So win it first of all. So that credential will be helpful for you for the MBA interview also. See, if you qualify for MBA in US or something, the admissions are based largely on the interview also, right? So you need to score in that aspect also. So when you have a showcasing thing like I have one entrepreneurial grant and I have showed some technical advancement in my BTech itself, it will be very helpful for you when you qualify for an MBA program abroad or probably in IIM also. So my answer is after BTech, it is better to do MBA.
Thank you, sir. And the next question is, what will be the regulatory affairs to start a biotechnological company?
See, regulatory affairs, it depends. It's a very broad question. For example, food industry, I can help you to answer. The regulations are pretty clear. You cannot add a recombinant product in the food. Only bio-type fermentations are allowed. But in the biopharma, any kind of recombinant products are allowed. For example, nowadays we are willing to take a recombinant vaccine also. This Covishield is a DNA vaccine. Fine. So anything if it is competitive, anything if it is acceptable, the regulatory framework is very, very dynamic, very, very helpful also now. It's not like 90s or 80s. Nowadays, the regulatory framework is much friendly to the corporates. So don't worry on that aspect. Fine. So when you have an advancement to show, when you have a gain of function to show, definitely you will qualify in the regulatory pathway.
Sir, thank you for answering your question, sir. Now I kindly ask Dr. Chamundeshwari to give the vote of thanks.
Yeah, good afternoon to one and all present here. And a special thanks to Dr. G.R. Gopi. I used to call him as Gopi. It's a wonderful lecture, sir. So on the behalf of management and department, I would like to give a special thank you. Since you are speaking for 1 hour about the current trends and what are the revolutions that has been made due to the COVID virus, and what are the various opportunities that is being possible for a biotechnologist, because people used to learn the course but they don't know what to do after completion of the course. So thank you very much for guiding them how to step in various industries like bio industries, agriculture, pharma industries, and other product based industries. And also you have lightened how to go for higher studies and getting funded also. So a special thanks for you for guiding our BTech Biotech, our MTech students, and partially the PhD students of our department. And apart from this, I want to thank our chief patron, Dr. B. Babu Manogaran, Chairman, St. Joseph Group of Institution, and our patrons, Mrs. Jessie Priya, Managing Director, St. Joseph Group of Institution, and our Director, Mr. B. Shashishekar, Director, St. Joseph Group of Institution, and our Principal, Dr. V. Sheshagiri Rao, St. Joseph College of Engineering, and Dean Research, Dr. B. Parvadavardhani, St. Joseph College of Engineering. Apart from this, I want to thank our conveners, Dr. G. Sri Kumar, Professor and Head of the Department of Biotechnology, and Dr. Renika V., Professor and Head of Lab Affairs. And a special thanks to our staff members who have participated in this program, and also our student organizer, Alfred Francis, who was helping to sail this biotech series for a long period. A special thanks to him. Apart from this, the attendees who has helped in sailing this event so smoothly. So thank you very much, and I think we can stop with this. Thank you, students. I think Alex will tell you the few points about next session. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. I once again thank all the participants for attending the webinar, and I would like to inform everyone that there will be the next BioTalk series version 2.11 on August 7th, and it will be communicated shortly. Hope you all see you soon. Stay safe. Thank you.